Hey everyone, welcome to Master Stoicism. Today we're tackling a topic that can often feel impossible to escape: overthinking. How many times have you found yourself lying awake, replaying conversations, second-guessing decisions, or wondering what others think of you? Overthinking can rob us of our peace, waste our energy, and trap us in loops of worry and doubt. But what if I told you that over 2,000 years ago, the Stoics had answers to these exact struggles? They saw the same mental traps we fall into today and developed practical tools to overcome them. Today we'll be exploring 10 Stoic principles you can use right now to stop overthinking, to find peace, and to live with a clearer, more focused mind. So if you're ready to end the mental loops and finally put a stop to overthinking, stay tuned. We're about to take a deep dive into Stoic wisdom that's just as relevant now as it was in ancient Rome. By the end of this video, you'll have practical, actionable steps you can apply to break free from the chains of overthinking. 1. Focus on what you can control: the dichotomy of control. Let's start with one of the most essential Stoic ideas: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus taught us to distinguish between things that are within our control and things that are outside of it. Overthinking happens when we lose sight of this distinction, often dwelling on things we can't influence, like what others think of us, past mistakes, or future uncertainties. Here's a relatable example. Imagine you're waiting for a response after a job interview. Your mind might begin to spiral with questions like, what if I didn't answer that question well enough? What if they think I'm not qualified? This cycle can feel endless, especially because the final decision isn't up to you, it's outside your control. The Stoic solution is simple but powerful: focus only on what's within your control. In this case, you had control over preparing for the interview, showing up, and putting forth your best effort. Now that the interview is done, it's out of your hands. When you focus only on what you can directly influence, the anxiety that fuels overthinking diminishes because you're no longer holding yourself responsible for things you can't control. 2. Practice mindfulness, living in the present. Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, constantly reminded himself to return to the present moment. Overthinking typically pulls us out of the present, entangling us in regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. The Stoics understood that the present moment is the only time where we actually live, and it's where our peace of mind resides. Imagine you're out with friends, but your mind keeps drifting to an embarrassing moment from last week. You're physically present, but mentally you're reliving something that's already gone. Not only does this ruin your current experience, but it also amplifies your worries and pulls you further into overthinking. When you find your mind wandering, follow the Stoic practice of mindfulness. Notice your surroundings, listen to the sounds around you, feel the textures, and bring yourself back to the here and now. Living in the present can stop overthinking in its tracks because, by definition, overthinking happens when we're lost in thoughts of a time that isn't here. By grounding yourself, you make it impossible for those thoughts to take hold. 3. Recognize the impermanence of thoughts: mental toughness. The Stoics knew that thoughts are just that, thoughts. They're fleeting, impermanent, and often lack the weight we give them. When we overthink, we treat our thoughts as if they're permanent truths, but in reality, they're temporary visitors in our minds. Think about the last time you were anxious about an upcoming event, like a presentation or a difficult conversation. You might have spent hours or even days overthinking it, rehearsing worst-case scenarios. But now, looking back, you probably realize that the worry was disproportionate to the actual event. The Stoics remind us that our worries are temporary, just like clouds passing through the sky. When you're stuck in an overthinking loop, remind yourself of the impermanence of your thoughts. Ask yourself, will this worry matter a week from now? A month? A year? Often the answer is no. This perspective creates space in your mind, allowing you to recognize that these thoughts don't have to define or control you. 4. Practice negative visualization, facing fears head-on. Negative visualization is one of the Stoic practices that can seem strange at first, but it's incredibly powerful. This technique involves imagining the worst-case scenarios you're afraid of so you can realize they're not as catastrophic as they seem. By facing your fears head-on, you strip them of their power. For instance, suppose you're dreading a public speaking engagement. Your mind starts asking, what if I forget what to say? What if everyone laughs at me? Instead of letting these worries spiral, try negative visualization. Picture yourself forgetting a line and see the scene through to the end. Maybe you pause, take a breath, or even make a joke about it. People are understanding and life goes on. You don't fall apart, you find a way to carry on. Negative visualization allows you to confront your fears directly, making them feel smaller and more manageable. It reminds you that even if things don't go perfectly, you'll survive. This practice helps reduce overthinking because it breaks down the hold of our worst-case scenarios. 5. Limit judgments and assumptions, accepting things as they are. Overthinking is often driven by judgments and assumptions we make about situations and people. Instead of seeing events for what they are, we add layers of meaning. The Stoics believed in seeing things objectively, without interpreting them through a biased lens. Imagine you send a message to a friend and they don't reply for hours. Instantly, your mind starts spinning, did I say something wrong? Are they angry with me? But the reality is simple, you sent a message and they haven't responded yet. Any further assumptions are just stories your mind is creating. By limiting your judgments, you can stop overthinking at its root. Accept things as they are and avoid adding interpretations unless you have concrete evidence. This Stoic approach keeps your mind from creating unnecessary drama, allowing you to deal with situations as they unfold. 6. Embrace adversity as growth resilience. For the Stoics, adversity was an opportunity for growth. Challenges, they believed, were a test of character and resilience. When we face setbacks, we often fall into overthinking, analyzing every detail, questioning ourselves and wondering how things might have gone differently. But the Stoics taught us to see adversity as a chance to become stronger and wiser. Consider a time when you faced a major setback, perhaps a failed project or a broken relationship. It's easy to get lost in overthinking, replaying everything that went wrong. Instead, the Stoic approach is to ask, what can I learn from this experience? How can I grow? By viewing challenges as learning opportunities, you move from rumination to constructive reflection. When you see adversity as a stepping stone for growth, overthinking loses its grip. You're no longer focused on what went wrong, you're looking forward, focusing on how to improve. 7. Journaling to process thoughts, decluttering the mind. Journaling was a central practice for Stoics like Marcus Aurelius, who used it to organize and understand his thoughts. When we overthink, our minds feel cluttered, as if 100 voices are speaking at once. Putting these thoughts down on paper can be incredibly freeing, helping you process them without getting lost in the noise. Let's say you're wrestling with a big decision, perhaps a career change or a move to a new city. Your mind races with pros and cons, risks and fears, making it difficult to reach a decision. Take a moment to journal. Write down everything that's on your mind without censoring yourself. As you write, you might notice certain worries lose their intensity once they're on the page. Journaling allows you to step back and look at your thoughts more objectively. It takes the mental clutter and makes it something you can examine, question, and work through. By putting your thoughts on paper, you can release them, giving your mind the space it needs to focus on what matters. 8. Accepting death as a motivator, memento mori. The Stoic concept of memento mori, or remember that you will die, might sound morbid, but it's one of the most effective tools for combating overthinking. When we remember that life is finite, we gain perspective on what's truly worth our time and mental energy. Imagine you're fixated on a small mistake at work. You can't stop thinking about what your boss might think, replaying the event over and over. But then, consider it from a Stoic perspective, will this really matter in the grand scheme of my life? By reminding yourself of life's brevity, you gain a new lens for viewing everyday worries. Memento mori doesn't mean fearing death, it means understanding that time is limited. It pushes you to focus on what truly matters and let go of trivial concerns. By asking yourself if your current worry is worth your limited time, you can often let it go and focus on what's meaningful. 9. Emphasize virtue over outcomes, focus on character. The Stoics valued living virtuously above all else. Instead of focusing on external outcomes, they believed in cultivating character, being honest, courageous, and just. Often overthinking stems from a desire to control outcomes. We want to be liked, respected, or successful, and we worry about whether we're achieving these goals. But the Stoics remind us that the only thing we truly own is our response to life. Imagine you're overthinking a relationship issue, wondering if the other person likes you as much as you like them. Instead of worrying about their response, shift your focus to how you act in the relationship. Are you kind, patient, and genuine? By emphasizing virtue over outcomes, you free yourself from the need to control what others think or do. This Stoic approach eases overthinking because it removes the pressure to control external factors. When you focus on living virtuously, you can let go of the mental loops, knowing that you're doing your best regardless of how things turn out. 10. Remember the bigger picture cosmic perspective. The Stoics encouraged us to zoom out and see life from a broader perspective. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of the vastness of the universe and his small role within it. Overthinking tends to make everything feel more significant than it is, as if every minor issue or mistake is a life-altering event. Imagine you're obsessing over a small disagreement with a coworker. To you, it might feel monumental, but when you think of your life as a small part of a much larger whole, the weight of the situation starts to lighten. By taking this cosmic perspective, you can see that most issues are temporary and minor in the grand scheme of things. This mindset helps you let go of the small stuff, freeing your mind to focus on what really matters.